All right, so I'm going to go ahead and do a quick intro, and then we'll just go ahead.
That's great.
Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's event. My name is Sierra Ladroma, the project manager for the Iowa Center's Women's Business Center. The Women's Business Center is funded in part through a cooperative agreement with the U.S. Small Business Administration. You will all be receiving an email with a form to complete after this event. This information allows us to continue providing free educational programming for small business owners in Iowa. Feel free at any time to use the chat option to add questions or comments. Today's conversation is on targeted small businesses with Jill Lippincott of the Iowa Economic Development Authority. Jill has managed the TSP certification program and connected eligible Iowa businesses to local resources, education materials, networking events, and financial opportunities. Jill, thank you so much for being with us today. The screen is yours.
Thank you so much for having me, and I would just much appreciate those who have joined us as well. Thank you for taking the time to be with us today and to learn about the Targeted Small Business Program. We were just sharing previously that it's been a while since I've given this presentation, so it's nice to be back in a position where we are really being proactive to the businesses that I know are looking to grow, expand, or even just get started. So open to any questions from at any stage of business that you might be in, if you are learning about this as you are growing or learning about this as you get started. And is the chat function open? Is that something that we will be utilizing today as well? Okay, I'll be taking a look at that. And again, just welcome questions along the way or at the end, have an opportunity for questions too. All right. Well, as Sarah mentioned, I'm with Iowa Economic Development Authority and have managed the TSB program since 2016. This program has grown exponentially, especially in the last year, as we recently had a grant program connected to it. And I'm proud to say that we now have more targeted small businesses than in the last, I think, 8 fiscal years. So we are growing our team as well. So while I am the team lead for the TSB program, we have a number of other people that join us in supporting this program here at IDA. And so it's a team effort in growing and managing this program. I'm going to start by giving some background as to what the Targeted Small Business Program is, a few highlights as to what are the benefits, and then we'll get into how to apply. And so again, any questions along the way, I'm happy to answer, or wait until the end and we can answer them as well. So just to get us started, the first question that I always get is, what is a targeted small business? So different programs that identify different groups have various different criteria for their eligibility. The Targeted Small Business Program is a state program here in Iowa. So it's a state level program that identifies businesses that are at least 51% owned or operated and actively managed by a targeted group person. So an individual who is a woman, a minority group, or participant in a minority group, persons with a disability, or service disabled veteran. Further definitions also apply, and I'm always happy to answer specific questions as to eligibility. The business also must be located in the state of Iowa, operating for a profit, and have an annual gross income of less than $4 million. And these last two, I always get questions about as, we hear from folks who are saying, hey, I'm not generating a revenue yet, so do I still qualify? And operating for profit just means that you're not a nonprofit organization. And same with the annual gross income of less than $4 million. I know that seems a large number. That is how the state identifies the Targeted Small Business Program, but we do have entities that have been participants in the program for a number of years that then graduate out because they exceed that $4 million in gross revenue. So it's a kind of a bittersweet day when we have to say, unfortunately, you're no longer qualified for the Targeted Small Business Program, but also congratulations, because that's a huge success. So a few things that I always like to start out with the Targeted Small Business Program. The first question we get is, what's the benefit? And originally, the Targeted Small Business Program was established by the Iowa legislature to identify businesses that the state could do business with. And the state of Iowa, all of its agencies set goals for how much they're going to purchase in goods and services from targeted small businesses. And each year they report out on those goals. So when answering the question, what is the benefit of the targeted small business program and participating, I always like to throw out this large number. Over $44 million was purchased from targeted small businesses by the state of Iowa in FY19. And we'll have our FY20 numbers coming out here in a few months. But this is, a pretty impactful way of saying our state essentially has what we call a supplier diversity program. It identifies businesses to do business with that are minority-owned, women-owned, and through the program is able to work with them successfully to support them. So this is $44 million going back to diverse businesses in our state. Another much smaller number that I also like to point out is that our businesses get 48 hours of advance notification when it comes to state bidding opportunities. This is all done through a portal that we recently upgraded in the last few years, where businesses that sign up and get certified are also able to use the same portal that they do the sign up through to view state purchasing opportunities 48 hours in advance of when they are posted to the public. So as a small business owner, we recognize that you may have less staff than a larger entity, and it gives you just a few extra days to potentially begin your response to an RFP or putting together information to reply to a potential state bidding opportunity. Now, the other thing that we'll talk about is the Targeted Small Business Directory and how our state purchasing entities can find you directly on there and work with you directly. So this is just one way that our state buyers can interact with their targeted small businesses, but our businesses do get a few days of advance notice. And then finally, the Targeted Small Business also has a loan program. And the loans are managed through the Iowa Center for Economic Success. They're our fabulous partner in managing the loans on our behalf. And one of the things that we often get questions about is, do I have to become certified in order to be eligible for a loan? And this was actually a change made a few years ago in that individuals who are applying for targeted small business loans do not have to be certified first. And the idea is that this certification is really for businesses that are in business, ready to do business with the state or anybody else. The loans may be something you need as you get started. And so we detach the loans from the certification so that you could apply for a loan to get started as you get into business. And then the certification is then reserved for once you're up and going and running the business. So with that, I wanted to just circle back, like I said, to the purchasing options. So the state of Iowa is able to purchase anything from any public vendor for amounts under $5,000. Beyond that, they have to go into a competitive bidding process. Previously, the Targeted Small Business Program had an additional benefit that the state buyers could work directly with targeted small businesses for an amount under $10,000, meaning that they don't have to do put out a bid for what they're looking to purchase. They can reach out to a targeted small business directly as long as it's under $10,000, and public vendors for under $5,000. They do that by using the Targeted Small Business Directory, which we'll talk about. But one of the things that we noticed as we just managed the program is that this benefit, which was established about 10 years or so, had become outdated. And the $10,000 mark wasn't really much of a benefit to some of our targeted small businesses anymore, because many of the purchases that the state was making was much higher. So we worked with our other state agencies and went to the legislature to have that number amended. And so now state buyers can work with targeted small business vendors directly for any amounts under $25,000. A significant benefit. It saves the buyer's time and not having to put a bid together and go through the whole bid management process, especially if they know of a number of TSBs that they can work directly with. Now, what does this look like in practice? Our state buyers still want to make sure they're getting a good value. So they may reach out to a number of TSBs in the targeted small business directory. So we encourage them to identify vendors that might fit the needs that they're looking for, and maybe even reach out to 2 or 3. And they would do that in an informal way and say, hey, this is what we're looking to purchase. Can we get a general quote from you? So much easier than the whole bidding process, which requires a number of strict deadlines and regulations. Much easier. They still may get reach out to get an informal quote, but then they can work directly with the TSB. So I always mention this too, because once you're in the targeted small business directory, you may get outreach like that from some of our state buyers. They're actively utilizing the directory, and so that way you know what it is when you get that type of an email. So again, going back to why become certified? This is a question we get a lot. And I used to start with the whole how to do the application process, but I really think it's important to also know the additional benefits of becoming targeted small business certified. So we're going to go through each of these areas quickly and talk through some of the things that we also do as a part of the program if you're not interested in doing business with the state of Iowa. So we have many people who are utilizing the program that working with the state just isn't part of what their business model is, but they do receive the other benefits of the program. As I've mentioned, a big piece is the targeted small business directory. So the directory is available to anyone at any time. It is found through our site, iowaeda.com/TSB. And this directory was recently upgraded so that businesses in our listing could be found a little bit easier. So now businesses can be found across multiple counties. So if a buyer is looking for businesses within, say, the central Iowa area, they can search across multiple counties. They can search by NAICS codes. They can search by product categories or service categories, or even cities. The directory that had previously been used had just not been as robust. So we were really excited to be able to upgrade this. And one of the nice things about it is that once you find the businesses that you're looking for, you can download them to an Excel spreadsheet and then utilize that for contact information. So again, you may get inquiries from individuals who are looking to do business with you as a woman or minority-owned business or veteran-owned business. So we get calls a lot from businesses who are looking to subcontract some of their work, for instance, and so they use the directory for that reason. We get calls from individuals who are looking to do business with minority-owned or women-owned businesses specifically, and they can specifically select those categories out of the directory. So it is used it is used by our state buyers, but is also used beyond our state purchasers by more companies and other entities that are making their goals to do business with diverse businesses, and this is one way for you to be found. I think we have an example. So once you're in the directory, you can add in your logo, you can add information about your company. And this is an example of just a company that has utilized the directory and is an example of a company that isn't bound to state purchasing. Alliant Energy is an independent company, but they use the targeted small business portal as a part of their work to do business with diverse businesses. We're seeing more and more of that as a part or as supplier diversity grows, and we do a lot of advocacy for that as well. Earlier this year, we worked with the Des Moines Partnership, for instance, to bring in a national speaker about supplier diversity and the importance of working with diverse suppliers and the benefits to our community that brings. So we are continuing, I know our director is a strong supporter of this, continuing to just spread the message about the importance of supplier diversity. So as you can see, these are events that we've held in the past, because I think when any of us see photos like this now, we all kind of think, oh my goodness, they're standing so close to each other. But we used to hold various networking events, and I'm certain that we will be doing these in some form or fashion in the future, or maybe virtual. But networking events were held around the state, and we hold these in conjunction with our other small business partners, resource partners. So the SBDCs, the SBA, SourceLink, and Iowa Center, a number of economic developers, for example, all come together. We just really open it up for networking with small business owners, with each other, or with the resources. It's really informal. It's meant to be just a place for community to build within the businesses in our program, and to connect with other resources in a really safe space. So often I like to say in these, or when we held these events, I kind of was, fly on the wall, and it was great. It was very organic in the networking that took place. And it was great to see that when we bring or businesses in our directory together, there's some new connections that are made. And I always kind of say, I go to a number of networking events, and I typically know most of the people there when I go. So it's kind of a new and refreshing networking group that comes together and gets to make some of those new connections. So again, we will be doing some form or fashion of this again. We'll explore the virtual options. We'll bring in resource partners and just make space for businesses in our directory to commune and to connect with each other. So as I mentioned, we bring a number of resources together. There are so many that come together to help support small businesses in Iowa. And I think sometimes we become a place, as businesses in our program get to know us, where they might come to us and ask us questions that may not be within what we do, but we can send them to a place that can support them, or connect them to another organization or a specific individual and point person at that organization that might be able to address their question. So this is just an example of the businesses that we bring together. A lot of them we bring together as a part of those networking events that I talked about. But again, really just a really strong network in Iowa of small business resources that I think we all work really well together to connect and lift businesses up. And if we're the place that somebody goes to, we can connect them onto the next resource. Or we like to share out a lot of information, email information about workshops and upcoming events that businesses can attend, just to, again, be another clearinghouse place for some of that information to go out. So another thing that I'm really proud of is the way that we're able to highlight businesses in our program. So we have done some highlights when we can in various publications, but we also have a quarterly newsletter, that's what you're seeing here, where we can't promote products or services, but what we can do is highlight businesses and their achievements, things that they're doing in their community, and just really putting a face to the small business community, especially for the audience for our newsletter, which includes the targeted small businesses, but also many of our state buyers. And this is where I think it really becomes real for our state buyers to understand. And I think all of us who work with small business owners know that when you are supporting a small business, you are supporting that individual's community, because often those small business owners are giving back to their community. And this section of our newsletter really shines a light on that. So I'm really proud of that. We also just had an individual, Hannah Shaw, with Lola's Kitchen, highlighted in the business record last year. It sounds like she was just a speaker recently as well. And Hannah has an incredible story. We're incredibly glad that she's in our program as a leader in the restaurant field, as well as a women and minority business owner. And these are the stories that we like to make sure are told. So a lot of what we are doing as a part of our work just at Iowa Economic Development is telling stories about businesses and making sure they reach the media. So again, it's sort of a passive way for PR for you as a part of the program, is that your story may be lifted up and shared. I know that as a part of the This is Iowa and Iowans Unite campaigns, IEDA is really sharing a lot of messaging about small business owners and their perseverance through various crises of 2020. And so we are continuing to tell those stories and lift them up as often as we can. And they are just incredibly inspiring, I must say. And then we also encourage businesses in our program to share their stories. So one of the things that happens when a business becomes certified is they receive what's called a badge. So it's a logo that you can use on your social media sites, you can use on your website, on your business card. It helps to identify you as a targeted small business. We encourage businesses to promote that and promote themselves, but we also share information out on social again about what businesses are doing or what they're being recognized for. So we have businesses that have won awards, have been featured on podcasts, have been listed in magazines. So anything like that, we'll reshare that out as we see it. So I'm always trying to kind of read all of the various publications. I've got some Google alerts set up for targeted small businesses. I try to make sure that we're capturing a lot of what's happening with our targeted small businesses in the state so that we can reshare that information out to others. Again, it's all about just lifting the profile of businesses owned by women, individuals with minority status, service disabled veterans, and individuals with disabilities, and raising that profile in any way that we can. And so going back to the benefits of the program, I think, again, it's a passive way for your story to be told. So hopefully I've given you enough reason at this point to want to become TSP certified. So we'll go over the steps for certification. I will talk about the application here momentarily and show a few screenshots. It is an online application. We do have hard copies available on our site. The best way to get started is to go to iowaeda.com/TSB, and we can share that information out later, Sierra, as we were talking to, and I'll also share our contact information. You'll find our online application, but you'll also find a printable hard copy application if that would be more accessible for you. So either way is fine. The online application is, again, free. Both applications are free, I should say. This is something that was changed in the last few years. We used to have an application fee, and we removed that because it seems like one more obstacle to a program that is intended to reduce obstacles for you. So no fee to apply. Once you apply, we're going to talk a little bit about the documentation that we do ask that you submit. So there is some information that we'll need from you. The one thing that I would also offer up is that there is no harm in not getting it perfect. So if you do not submit all of the documentation that we need, or you're not sure, we will review it and let you know if there's anything else that we need. So it's not a hard no, you didn't get it right, and so you're not going to get into the program. We actually want to work with you to help you understand why we're asking for what we ask, and that's a part of our review process. Sometimes it's documents that you may have, and sometimes it may be questions just more about the business, so we can get to know your business better. It really all just depends on the business structure, how many owners are involved, when the business was established, and that type of thing. So I would say, and I think most of our team would agree, every application is a little different, but we really do treat everybody in a unique way when we do the review, so that you're held to your standard of what your business looks like. Typically, that review takes about 3 to 5 business days. If you haven't heard from us within about a week or so, I would reach out and just ask, if something got lost along the way. Totally possible, and especially when we had our grant program open, we were inundated with applications. It took us a while to kind of get our review time back to that 3 to 5 day turnaround time. We just hit that this month, so we were really proud. Our team had worked really hard to get caught up, essentially, because we also know when you submit the information, that's what you're focused on at that moment. And trust me, I see applications that have a timestamp of 3 a.m. because that is when somebody had the time to sit down and do the application. But then you've moved on, right? You've moved on to running your business in other capacities. So we know it's important to get back to you right away because this is top of mind now for you. And if we wait too long, it won't be. And so we want to make sure that we continue that conversation if we need more information from you. We continue to keep your application open. If you let us know you're working on it and you're putting documentation together, we try to be very open to just understanding your circumstances if you need more time as you put information together for your application. And as I mentioned, once you become certified, you do receive a number of things. So you'll receive an email right away from us to say, hey, congratulations, you're certified. That email can be overwhelming. I will say it's a bit of what I call a choose your own adventure, because you're going to get a number of resources right away that say, you know, about all of the different small business resources that are out there. Some of that may apply to you, some may not. So it really is, you know, pick and choose what resource you want to look into next. One that will be included is information about a webinar that our partners at Cirrus host. And it's about how to leverage your targeted small business certification. So I really encourage businesses to participate for the next webinar. I think they hold them quarterly. Sign up for that after you become certified to learn about what are your next steps with leveraging your certification. You know, Cirrus is a great entity for, and it's a free service that they offer for businesses who are looking to do state or federal work, if you're looking to look into state or federal bidding opportunities. So again, just an example of the resource information you're going to get. And if you're not interested in state or federal bidding, that's not something, you know, you can, or you need to follow up on, but there may be something else in that email. So I always caution, it's not meant to be overwhelming, but to pick and choose what it is that may interest you. You'll also receive a certificate, a letter in the mail, a window cling for your vehicle or for your business, the logo that you can use to identify your targeted small business with. And of course, probably emails from me on an ongoing basis about workshops and information that's available for small businesses to participate in. So going back to the application, when you're doing the online application, you'll click Start Application. Now, this is going to ask you a few quick questions. And the first 4 questions that you see are really meant to save you time if the Targeted Small Business Program is not a program you may be eligible for. So first, it's going to ask you, are you a 51% owner of your business and an individual who is a woman, an individual with minority status, a service-disabled veteran, or an individual with a disability? It's going to ask if you're located in Iowa, headquartered in Iowa, if you're making less than $4 million and you're operating for profit. In order to be able to continue forward with the application, you do need to answer yes to all of these questions. If you're not sure about answering yes, again, feel free to reach out to us if you have questions about eligibility. After you answer yes, you're going to be prompted to create a profile. So that's where you'll create the username and password to log in to the application. And this is a benefit because you'll be able to come back to your application if you're not able to complete it in one setting. I strongly encourage you to write down username and password. I will also just say our password resetting function is being a little tricky right now. So if you don't remember your password, you can always email us and we can reset that for you. Then you're going to be asked to build out your personal profile. And this is where we learn about you. We really just need your name, last name, and email at this stage. And then the next step is where you start building out your business profile. So I just note those steps because we've had a few people who get in and start filling out one and aren't sure where, you know, what it's for or what they're doing next. And so a few steps to start with before you then actually start the business profile. So we're collecting your username and password, your individual profile information, and then you'll start the business profile and application. So the first thing you're going to see is a number of tabs across the top of the page for the application. We're going to ask general information about the business name, the business structure. Are you a sole proprietor? Are you an LLC? Are you a corporation? That's going to help us later determine what type of documentation we'll need from you. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the various documentation that is needed based upon the business structure. Date started also helps us identify how long have you been in business. If you just started, it means you may not have business taxes, which is okay, and we can talk about that too. So that will give us an idea of, again, what types of documents we can ask for. Since our businesses are entered into our state vendor database, we will need either your federal employer ID or your social security number. If you're using that to report income for the business, that's not a problem at all, but we do ask for that information. And this is the point where I always remind everyone that our site is very secure. It has passed the inspection of our own IT team, as well as the state IT team. It is a service that we make sure is very secure because we're collecting this type of information. If you are uncomfortable in sharing that with us, you can always mail documentation to us as well. We're happy to receive it that way, but we do require that this information be shared so we can verify it. And because it's going into a vendor database, which is what we use to pay you if you were to be a vendor of the state. So I'm not going to go through each of these tabs, but I will just kind of highlight. We'll ask for some contact information. So that's address, phone number, email. We will ask for the owners, and we would request that you add all owners, even if they're not what we call a targeted group person, individual who is of minority status, service disabled, veteran, women, or individual with a disability. If you can provide all of the information, it allows us to understand who's involved in the business, even if they are not a targeted group person. And again, it just helps us to verify who is managing the business and if that person has that 51% or more ownership. Same with board members. If you're not sure who's a board member, feel free to reach out and ask, and we can provide some background on who that or who might qualify as a board member. Licenses and services that you provide. So if you're a contractor, for instance, we would ask for a contractor license. And again, it just goes back to some requirements that the state requires that you have a contractor license. So we'll verify that. But if licenses doesn't apply to you, you can skip that part and just provide information about the services and products that you provide. The operations question gets into a little bit more about how did the business get started. This helps us understand, again, more about your life cycle of your business, how long you've been in operations, and who's all involved in the work. And then the last few pages we'll touch on here are documents and the submission button and what to include in those documents. So this is, I'm sure, hard to see, but this is the documents page. And this is where you will upload some documents. There's a button down here that allow you to add documents. So you will want to have these scanned. They can be PDF or JPEG documents. So you can take a picture of a document on your phone and include that if that's the easiest way to scan those documents. There is a button here and here, and these are buttons that I would encourage you to open up and click on. The first is the required documents. So this section talks about the taxes that we need, but there's some other documents that we'll also require from you as well. So that's included in this link. This link is the notarized affirmation and authorization document that we also need. And we do require that to be notarized. It is a part of our actual Iowa code that requires that notary or that application to be notarized. Here's a pro tip that I would offer. The Iowa Center has an e-notary. And so if you are not able to travel, if you are, not wanting to, be outside of the home or office due to COVID exposure, totally understandable. The Iowa Center can be contacted for their e-notary. There's also e-notaries that can be found on the Secretary of State site. The governor did earlier this year make it allowable for notaries to do e-notarization. So there's a few different ways to get the document like that notarized. So once you have all documents, you'll load them here. But again, these two buttons will be things that you'll want to click on to learn more about what's required and to get the notarized document for the application. This is the document list. So this again will tell you exactly what we're looking for applicants whose business structure is an LLC, for applicants who are incorporated, or if you're a sole proprietor. Some of this may not apply, but generally what we typically need from all businesses is 2 years of taxes. If you've just started out, we'll look at your personal taxes. It will help us to verify that your business did indeed just start and wasn't started prior to the date of the application. It'll help us to verify your Social Security information. And we'll also typically need your identification of your targeted group status. So that could be a driver's license, it can be a birth certificate, it can be documentation from the Department of Veterans Affairs, it can be a documentation of your disability. We do have a form that you can provide to a physician to verify your disability if needed. So those are typically the two things we're going to need is taxes and that targeted group person documentation. We also would verify that you're registered as an LLC or corporation through the Secretary of State, or what's called a trade name registration if you're a sole proprietor. And the trade name registration is not something that most businesses know about. They're not required to get as a sole proprietor. It is required for our certification because it verifies that you are the only entity using your trade name, your business name. And I'm happy to answer questions about where to find that with your county recorder, but that's where it's typically done, with the county recorder. You may be required to provide copies of or documentation of insurance, or like I said, a license if you're required to be licensed in your field. So some other things are listed here that may not always be applicable, but definitely that signed and notarized application. So that affirmation document that I mentioned. And then there could be some additional documents based upon your structure. Again, feel free to reach out to us to learn more about what specific things we might be looking for. And these are things that we also recognize that maybe you started a business 10 years ago, they're on file with your attorney and you haven't looked at them since you signed the original documents. And we get that all the time. So we can help you navigate what it is that we are specifically looking for. This is the affirmation and authorization document. We do ask that it be notarized and that there be information about the notary. So the notary provides a stamp, or in the instance of an e-notary, typically what they'll send to us is an actual document and then verification about their notary status. So this information helps us to verify all the information on the application is true and correct and is required to be submitted with your application. A few other things before I wrap up here that tend to come up. The certification, like I said, is a process that you can start at any time and continue to manage as you put documentation together. TSBs are required to renew their certification every 2 years. So every 2 years, we'll reach out to you via email about 90 days in advance of your certification expiring, again at the 60-day mark. And then a month ahead, we'll do another email, but we'll also mail you a renewal application. So the renewal application can be done online through our portal, but it also can be done via hard copy. We'll accept both. And again, it's just a way to verify that the business structure hasn't changed. It's still within the same ownership, and the business is still owned by that 51% individual or individuals who are targeted group persons. We try to make that as easy as possible because I know, again, you're in the middle of running your business and putting this documentation together isn't always top of mind. So we, again, try to keep reminders out there open or out there frequently before the certification would close. At that point, I think that is all I had prepared to share today. But I've been trying to check the chat to see if any questions have come up. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Jill, thank you for all of that information. I do want to highlight what Jane Armstrong posted in the chat. So congratulations for being recognized as the U.S. Small Business Administration's Iowa Women in Business Champion for 2020. That's a big deal. Congratulations.
Thank you. And thank you, Jane. That is so kind of you. Again, I always just note that it is a team effort, and I came back last week, this was mentioned at a team meeting, and I immediately turned around and thanked the entire team because it is definitely because of everybody that we've been able to be successful with this program. And also leaders like Jane. Jane is such a strong advocate for women business owners, and she's a great example of the partners that we work with to raise up small businesses in Iowa and raise the profile of women business owners. So thank you, Jane, and thank you for all of your work as well.
So I did, Jill, put that iowaeconomicdevelopment.com/TSB website into the chat, and I will be including that into the follow-up email as well that everyone will be getting. We did receive a question, and this might be something that you could take just further on in a private conversation, but the question is, we submitted an application in October of 2019, and it still says pending. We spoke with someone about a month ago who confirmed that all info was submitted correctly. What do we need to do to finish our certification?
Oh, very good question. So thank you for following up. If you have a pending review, or pending application, I would just shoot me an email, the tsbcert@iowaeda.com, and we can include it in the chat too, so we can take a look specifically into the application. Sometimes if you have resubmitted the information, it doesn't always pop up in our queue, and so that's why we always encourage, if you haven't heard from us, let us know, because that is definitely something we want to stay on top of.
Perfect. And I believe one of the great advantages of being a TSB is that networking and community piece. Do you have any guidance in how a new TSB or even current TSBs can really pivot when it comes to building that community around them, or what do you think?
So there's so many, I think, great organizations that are doing some incredible Zoom networking opportunities, virtual networking opportunities. And I think just getting started with them, especially right now. So attending Iowa Center events. There's various entities that support women-owned businesses, for example. So NABO events or Fem City. I think there are a number of, like I said, still organizations that are still offering networking opportunities even in the time of COVID. And then as we become more comfortable, I think always just reaching out to ask one-on-one questions. All of us are here to make sure that if you've just become a TSB, that you leverage your certification. So if attending an event is great, but you don't get to ask the specific question you'd like to ask, shoot an email to any one of us, or we will do e-introductions to other individuals who might help answer any questions you might have. So I think attending as many events as you can. I know small business owners are busy and it's hard to get to all of them. So doing the one-on-one email and just questions is fine. I'm always open to, connecting with individuals via a Teams chat or a phone call, whatever they're comfortable with. I think that's been a great way to still kind of do one-on-one personal connections, even when we can't meet up. I think, we will definitely be looking to do more of our virtual networking or some sort of networking. We're all kind of exploring how that works right now and what everybody's comfortability level is too. So just getting connected, getting started, I think is the first step, and then navigating that in the way that's best comfortable for you.
That's great. Another question is, if an entrepreneur owns more than one business, would they need to complete an application for each business that qualifies to be a TSB?
Yes. So we treat each business separately unless it's owned by one umbrella corporation. So for each business, we look at whether there's multiple business owners. You may be a sole owner of one business, but another business may have multiple business owners, et cetera. And for our purposes, we do have to kind of look at each of those separately. And when we say, what qualifies as looking at them separately, we look to see if they are reporting taxes under different federal employer identification numbers. That's how we would typically define it. So if you are doing one business and you have some DBAs under that one business, but it's all funneling up under one tax document, essentially tax number, then that's how we would differentiate. But we would typically, if you have multiple FEIN numbers, multiple businesses owned with separate entities and entirely, we would treat those separately.
Great. And we have Penny Hansen, who is asking, how can we get a badge if we are already TSB members?
Penny, I'd be happy to send you a badge if you need one. It typically goes out in the initial email that you get. Again, that email includes a lot of information. So if you don't have that email, I'm happy to resend it to you. It's not a problem at all. And you also get it, I believe, again, every time you renew, we include it in that email too, every renewal email.
And then Jill, another question is, you mentioned the term bidding a couple times. Can you explain what bidding means?
Yeah, so our state, so purchasing, and I will first say I am not an expert when it comes to state purchasing, but the way that the state generally goes about purchasing large amounts of or products or services that are over that $5,000 threshold is by posting bidding opportunities on the state bidding site. So if you were to Google state of Iowa bid bid opportunities or purchasing opportunities, you'll see the state's bidding site. And this is all provided in some of the information that we share out to once you become certified. CIRRUS has some great tips on how to navigate this. I would encourage anyone to go there. I mean, it's open to anybody to Google. And what you can see is, what is the state buying? What are the things that various agencies are looking for? You know, if you're providing a specific service, maybe it's consulting, and it's environmental consulting, you know, that might be really applicable for DNR or DOT. And so you may see some of their bidding opportunities and determine, you know, is this something that they'd be looking for? And so you also know that that probably isn't a service that maybe I'm trying to think of it, the Finance Authority, for example, Iowa Finance Authority may not be looking for that type of service. So I think it will help individuals get an idea of which of our state agencies are looking for what, because again, there could be things that you do that just one of our agencies is just probably never going to need. And that way you don't ever worry about pitching to them either if they're not going to be buying the type of service or product you provide. But that will give you an idea. And then there's also, like I said, our portal itself is separate. So the state bidding portal, anybody can go to, you'll see all bids there. When you become certified, you're able to use our portal and you'll see the same bids. They'll just be a few days in advance. But you're also able to sign up. And this is one of the things I think we need to send out some more information about, even to our existing TSBs. You're able to sign up to only receive bids that are specific to what's called they're NIGP codes. They're essentially NAICS codes, but for government type of work, specific to the NIGP codes that apply to you. So then you can get emails anytime a bid is posted specific to the services and products that you've said, this is what I want to hear about, you know, because I do this, I sell this type of product or service. So that also helps to identify what it is that, you know, an agency might be looking for specific to what it is that you do. And then the whole bidding process beyond that is there's specific information that they will request. They'll require that you put together a quote. And I'm being very general here because I think it's, you know, it's done a little specifically dependent on the agency, but generally they'll ask for a quote. They'll ask for some documentation of your business. They'll ask for you to maybe break down the list of subcontractors, for instance, you might work with if it's a larger contracting quote, and a number of things. And you submit that, and then it goes through a review process. The procurement manager is who reviews that. They typically determine the winner based on lowest price. In Iowa, that's typically what they determine that based off of. If it's all things considered, so if you're a TSB and your price is even with somebody else who is not, then they have a preference to go with the TSB. So that is kind of a nice benefit. It does come down to, you know, if it's the same price, but they would go with the TSB at that point. So then, you go into management of the contract and go on from there. Again, this is all very general. I will say I'm not a procurement expert, but the folks at CIRRUS are, and they are the first people that we really encourage our TSBs to get connected to, because they can help you navigate all of that. And I'm always amazed by what they know and how they know what questions to ask, if you're trying to respond to a bid.
That's great, thank you. Now, the last two questions I have are, you mentioned something about the newsletter. How can someone get connected to that? And then how can a business be highlighted in the newsletter?
So, great question, thank you. The newsletter is sent out quarterly, so our next newsletter will come out in October. All newsletters are listed on our site, so you can go through the newsletters that have been listed previously. If you're TSB, you automatically get the newsletter. It'll get sent to you once you get added to our TSB directory. If you're an individual in the community that wants to receive the newsletter, just let us know and we'll add you to the list of community members. It also goes out to all of our state buyers as well. And we try to keep the list updated with resource partners. So small business resource partners also receive it. I was actually just thinking, because the newsletter is coming out 1st of October, that right about now is when I need to send an email to our TSBs saying, hey, have you been recognized for any achievements? Have you been a speaker at a conference? Have you done any thing that was mentioned in the media? Let us know. So I actually put a call out to our targeted small businesses to let us know. Again, we have to be careful that we aren't promoting any particular business's product or services over one another, but we do want to feature our businesses as a part of their greater community. And so we ask that you send us your submissions, and we typically ask for a headshot or a photo from the event or something like that, and a little bit of information about it. And then that's, it's as easy as that.
Awesome. Thank you, Jill. So if you liked this webinar today and found it beneficial for you and your business, we have so many great programs coming up for the remainder of the year. So join us for future Small Business Essentials. And we also have a story of event happening this Friday that is going to be a conversation with Nora Crosswhite, and she is a realtor here in the Des Moines Metro. So Jill, thank you so much for spending your time with us today. I mean, congratulations on your award. It is always such a pleasure to connect and have your expertise within our partnerships.
Thank you so much for having me. And again, appreciate all the work that you do, and you and all at the Iowa Center as a partner with our Targeted Small Business Loan Program, and just working with the small businesses in our community. It really takes a number of resource partners coming together, and we're happy to be in partnership with you.
Awesome. Have a great day, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you so much.
Bye.